Chosen one, you may still be asking God to approve something He has already been watching you become. Think about the version of you who entered this season. You needed answers quickly. Silence felt personal. A closed door felt like proof that something was wrong. But compare that person with the one who is listening now. Something changed, even if nobody celebrated it. Maybe there was no dramatic morning when you woke up transformed. The change happened in smaller rooms. It happened in choices nobody posted about. You did not send the message that would have reopened an old wound. You did not chase the person who kept choosing distance. You felt the urge to prove yourself, and somehow you stayed still. That quiet restraint was growth. God was not only watching the moments that looked spiritual. He saw the ordinary decisions that revealed your character. He saw the morning you got up with no visible reward. He saw the night disappointment sat heavily on your chest. He saw how easy bitterness would have been, and how you still refused to let pain choose your identity. That matters more than you think. You keep asking whether you prayed enough, whether you waited long enough, whether you learned the lesson correctly. But what if the question has already changed? What if God was never waiting for you to become flawless? What if He was watching what you would choose when there was no applause attached to choosing well? There is another reason this season feels confusing. You may have left the old situation, while the old situation still lives inside the way you receive information. You can walk out of a hard season physically and still expect danger emotionally. You can know the right answer and still reach for one more sign. That does not always mean your faith is weak. Sometimes uncertainty trained you to associate safety with confirmation. So you ask again, you wait again, you look for another message that says the same thing in different words. Beneath that caution may be an older fear. What if I move and regret it? What if I trust and get disappointed again? What if the open door becomes another lesson in disguise? Those questions can keep a prepared person standing still. Here is the first relief. You do not need to shame yourself for hesitation. You need to learn the difference between discernment and a mind that has become accustomed to delay. Discernment listens for truth. Fear keeps asking for impossible certainty. Discernment can pause. Fear keeps moving the finish line every time clarity arrives. Before this message is over, you will see what God may have been looking for in this season. You will also see why spiritual sincerity can exist beside mental fog and hesitation. Then you will see the difference between faithful waiting and the moment when clarity must finally become action. For now, hold one sentence close. Your growth may already be visible in decisions nobody saw. If that lands deeply, mark this moment with these words: God saw my yes. Not as superstition, as an acknowledgement that something real changed inside you before anything outside you had time to confirm it. What exactly did God see that changed the question over your life? The answer starts with something quiet, almost invisible. Chosen one, the first thing God may have been waiting to see was not how loudly you believed. It was what you did when belief became expensive. Faith is easy to describe when the answer is close. Character becomes visible when the room stays quiet, the door stays closed, and nobody can tell whether your obedience will ever be rewarded. This is what I call the unseen yes. It is the yes you give when nobody claps. It is the decision to remain honest when dishonesty would be easier. It is the choice to walk away from what keeps wounding you, even when part of you still misses it. It is the restraint to leave an argument unfinished because winning it would cost your peace. Think about how many times you have already given that yes. You did not retaliate when you had enough information to hurt someone back. You kept working when recognition never came. You kept your word when breaking it would have been convenient. You returned to prayer when your emotions felt dry. You chose not to abandon yourself just to keep temporary peace. Those choices were not small. Joseph did not become trustworthy when the palace finally opened. The palace revealed qualities that had already been formed in hidden places. He had lived through betrayal, false accusation, and delay before public responsibility ever arrived. That is why your current circumstances cannot be the only measurement of your growth. If you judge yourself only by what has arrived, you will miss what has developed. You recover faster, you chase less, you explain yourself less. You can feel a trigger without giving it the final word. There is an old Greek word, often connected with tested character, dokeim. It points toward character that has been proved through testing. The point is not that suffering makes you superior. The point is that pressure can reveal what has become stable inside you. And some of what is stable inside you now did not exist when this season began. Maybe that is why you feel different around certain people. You no longer need every misunderstanding corrected. You no longer need every invitation accepted. You no longer confuse access with love. You can care deeply and still say no. That boundary may look ordinary from the outside, but it may represent years of inner work, finally becoming visible in behavior. This is where validation becomes useful, instead of flattering. God does not need you to pretend you handled everything perfectly. You did not. There were days you spiraled. There were moments you went backward. But the larger pattern changed. You came back faster. You recognized the old pattern sooner. You stopped building a home inside the mistake. If that describes your season, say this quietly within yourself. My yes was seen. Not because every choice was flawless, because enough hidden choices began pointing in a new direction. That is what growth looks like when it becomes real. But there is one danger that appears after a person becomes very good at surviving delay. The habits that protected you in the closed-door season can keep operating after the season changes. You can learn patience so deeply that movement starts to feel reckless. You can learn caution so well that every opportunity looks suspicious. And this is where the next revelation begins. What happens when the test ends, but you keep taking it? Chosen one, a season can end before your habits receive the news. You can meet a sincere person and search for the hidden motive. You can receive a good opportunity and immediately ask where the trap is. The environment changed, but your inner posture stayed on guard. That is why some open doors feel strangely uncomfortable. You thought relief would feel like relief. Instead, it can feel unfamiliar. You receive the email you prayed for, then delay answering it. A path becomes clearer, but you keep asking God for another sign because certainty still feels safer than movement. This does not mean you should trust every opportunity. Discernment still matters. Wisdom still matters. But there is a difference between carefully examining what is in front of you and automatically distrusting anything that does not resemble the struggle you learned to survive. One protects you. The other can quietly keep you trapped. The old season taught you important things. It taught you not to force doors. It taught you to slow down before making emotional decisions. But wisdom from one season can become fear in another season when you apply it without asking whether the conditions have changed. Imagine receiving a message that could move your work forward. Still, you wait. You reread it. You ask 3 people what they think. You pray for a sign, then another sign, then something even more specific. By the time certainty feels complete, the moment that required a simple response may already be passing. That pattern has a name. It is the receiver test. The question is no longer only whether you can endure what is difficult. The question becomes whether you can receive what is good without forcing it to prove itself 10 times before you allow yourself to respond. That is a different kind of maturity. You may be thinking that not every open door comes from God. That is true. This is not permission to become careless. It is an invitation to notice whether your hesitation contains actual discernment or only the memory of disappointment. Use 3 questions when a decision feels unclear. First, does this choice violate what I already know is right? Second, Am I sensing a real warning, or only the discomfort of something unfamiliar? Third, what would I choose if I removed the fear of being disappointed again? Let the questions expose the source of the hesitation. A real warning usually has content. Something specific does not fit. Fear is often less precise. It says, wait forever. It says, something bad might happen. It says, do not move until the future becomes completely predictable. This is why you may feel suspended between two identities. You are no longer the person who entered the difficult season, but you are still using some of that person's survival rules. You know too much to return to your old life, yet you have not fully trusted yourself to move as the person you have become. That middle space can feel like divine delay when it is really a transition in how you respond. There is one more layer you need before this becomes complete. A person can know the right answer spiritually and still struggle to act on it. A sincere heart can exist beside a scattered mind. And if you confuse those two things, you may keep blaming your faith for a problem that needs a different kind of attention. That is where we are going next. Chosen one, your spirit may not be the problem. You can love God sincerely and still feel mentally scattered. You can sit down to pray with a willing heart, then notice your attention slipping before the first quiet minute is over. That does not automatically mean you are spiritually blocked. It does not mean you have become lazy. It does not mean God has withdrawn from you. Sometimes the mind carries so much tension that simple clarity feels harder to reach. If you make every moment of fog a moral failure, you add shame to a problem that already needs space. Maybe you have noticed it in ordinary moments. You open your laptop and forget why you sat down. You read the same paragraph 3 times. You start answering a message, then lose the thought halfway through. You know a decision matters, but your mind keeps circling without landing. The result can feel spiritual because it affects prayer and confidence. But sincerity and clarity are not the same thing. A sincere heart can still be tired. A faithful person can still be overloaded. A devoted person can still need to support the mind that must process choices, relationships, and daily pressure. That distinction can be deeply freeing. Notice your body for a moment. Do not change anything yet. Notice your jaw. Notice your shoulders. Notice the space between your eyebrows. Notice whether your breath is high in your chest or low and easy. Sometimes the first clue is not a message from outside you. It is the amount of tension you have been calling normal. Now let one breath leave slowly. Do not force a spiritual experience. Just notice what changes when your body is given permission to stop preparing for danger. A little space can return. A little clarity can return. And when that happens, you begin to see why every hesitation should not be labeled disobedience. This matters because the receiver matters. Your calling may be real, your values may be clear, your desire to obey may be sincere. But the mind that receives information, compares options, notices patterns, and turns insight into action still has to function under real human conditions. That does not make the sacred less sacred. It makes your humanity part of the picture. So stop asking one question every time you feel fog. Stop asking, what is wrong with me spiritually? Ask a better question. What condition am I trying to make this decision from? Exhaustion, pressure, fear, noise, or genuine clarity? That question gives you back responsibility. If this is landing, hold this sentence. I receive with clarity. Not because you can control every outcome, not because every decision will feel easy, but because you no longer have to confuse mental overload with a failure of faith. And there is something else I want you to hold before we go deeper. Researchers have spent decades studying how different parts of the human brain coordinate and communicate. Some of that work reaches back to discoveries connected with a Nobel Prize. Later in this message, I will return to one practical idea from this broader conversation about how the brain processes information. For now, keep one question open. What if part of what you have been calling spiritual hesitation has an address somewhere much more physical? Chosen one. Once you stop turning every moment of fog into spiritual failure, another pattern becomes easier to see. When clarity feels weak, most people respond by trying harder. They add another routine, another prayer, challenge. The intention is sincere, but the pressure keeps rising. More effort can help when direction is already clear. But more effort inside confusion can create more noise. You push harder because you want movement. Then the mind becomes more crowded. The crowded mind produces less confidence, so you push again. You can build a loop where pressure is mistaken for devotion. This is especially common in people who care deeply. You do not want to miss what matters. You do not want fear to lead you, so you keep collecting information long after the decision has become visible. That feels responsible, but sometimes it is only hesitation wearing the clothes of preparation. There is a simpler rule: clear before commit. Before you make a meaningful decision, do not ask your mind to sprint while your whole system is still bracing. Give yourself a short process that produces one clear output. First, calm the body. Take a slow breath and release unnecessary tension. Second, label the actual decision, not the entire future. Name the one decision in front of you. Third, eliminate imagined consequences. Separate what you know from what fear is inventing. Fourth, ask what is already clear. There is often more clarity than anxiety allows you to admit. Fifth, respond with one reversible step. Make it small enough to complete in 15 minutes. Send the email. Write the first paragraph. Schedule the conversation. Gather the document. Take one action that gives reality a chance to answer you. Not whether you feel perfectly certain. Not whether every fear disappears. The output is one specific next action you can complete without pretending you control the whole road. Small movement from clarity often teaches you more than another hour of mental rehearsal. Imagine waking tomorrow without 14 tabs open inside your head. One task is clear. One conversation is clear. One decision no longer needs another week of debate. You are not rushing. You are not forcing. You are simply using the clarity you already have before asking for more. This is where the old identity starts to loosen. The version of you who survived by over-preparing does not have to manage every future moment. The version of you who learned caution can still become decisive. You are not betraying the lessons of the past by moving with more ease. You are proving that the lesson became wisdom. You could stop here and already understand why the last season felt so confusing. You could see why waiting became familiar and why effort kept increasing even when movement did not. But this is only half the revelation. Because knowing why you hesitate does not automatically restore your ability to move. Insight can become another safe place if you only admire it. There comes a point when understanding has to cross a threshold and become a different way of living. That threshold is where many sincere people quietly turn back. And the next part is about that exact moment. The moment when the discipline that carried you through one season must stop controlling the next. Chosen one, there is a point where the lesson is no longer asking you to endure more. It is asking whether you can live differently because of what endurance already taught you. This is the completion threshold. It is the moment when a discipline that protected you in one season can limit you in the next. Maybe you learn not to force doors. Good. Maybe you learn not to chase people. Good. Maybe you learn to wait until emotions settled before making a decision. Good. But what happens when the door is open, the facts are clear, and you still apply survival rules as if danger must be hiding somewhere? That is where struggle can become part of identity. You begin to trust hard things because hard things are familiar. Ease feels suspicious. Peace feels temporary. A good opportunity arrives, and part of you thinks it must contain a hidden test. Your body prepares for loss before anything has been lost. This is one reason some people feel guilty when life becomes lighter. They learned so much through difficulty that pain started to feel like proof of sincerity. If it costs more, it must matter more. But God does not need suffering to continue forever for the lesson to remain real. Wisdom can stay after pressure leaves. Completion does not mean perfection. You will still misread a moment sometimes. Old reactions will still return. The difference is response speed. You notice sooner. You recover faster. You return to what is true without building a home inside the mistake. That is mature growth. So, if you are waiting to become flawless before you believe the season has changed, you may wait forever. The better measurement is simple. How quickly do you recognize the old pattern? How willing are you to move once direction becomes clear? Those questions measure integration, not performance. Picture an opportunity arriving this week. In the past, you might have spent 3 days asking 5 people what they think. You might have searched for signs until every answer created another question. Now imagine something different. You pause. You check what is right. You separate warning from unfamiliarity. Then you take one grounded step. You are not throwing away discernment. You are finally allowing discernment to finish its job. Wisdom is not meant to keep you permanently undecided. It helps you recognize when a decision is ready. This is why the question over your life may be changing. It may no longer be, can you survive another closed door? You already know how to survive. The deeper question may be, can you walk through an open door without dragging yesterday's fear through it? If the answer rising inside you is yes, say this within yourself, I leave the test. You are not rejecting the lesson. You are refusing to repeat what has already become part of your character. And this is the point where we reach the missing piece. Why does knowing all of this still not create movement? Why can a person understand the pattern, agree with every word, and still wake up tomorrow inside the same fog? The answer is not more motivation. There is another layer of the receiver we have not addressed yet. Before we touch it, make this plain. You were not necessarily waiting because God had rejected you. Part of the difficulty was continuing to operate from survival patterns after they stopped serving you. You learned to endure. Now you must learn to receive. You learned how to endure without clarity. You do not have to build the next season that way. The next question is not whether you have enough faith to suffer more. It is whether you are willing to support the mind that must recognize, evaluate, and act on what is already in front of you. Chosen one, you now understand the shape of the problem. You were not necessarily waiting because God had rejected you. Part of the difficulty was that survival patterns kept operating after they had stopped serving you. You learned to endure. You learned not to force. But those strengths can become limits when the season requires clear movement. The reason matters. Your mind learned to associate safety with delay. Your body learned to expect pressure before possibility. So even when your values were clear, the receiver could still be crowded with noise. That is why the answer is not simply more faith, more pressure, or more information. The practical path is simple. Calm the body, name the decision, separate facts from imagined consequences, ask what is already clear, then take one small step. You do not need perfect certainty. You need enough clarity to act with integrity. And this changes who you are in the story. You are not only the person who survived the closed door, you are becoming the prepared receiver. You learned how to endure without clarity. You do not have to build the next season that way. Earlier, I asked you to hold a question about the mind. I said there was a practical idea connected with neuroscience research that I would return to. This is where that loop closes. Science cannot explain God, but the human mind has physical systems that affect attention, decision-making, and the way information gets processed. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for research involving the specialized functions of the two cerebral hemispheres. His work did not prove a spiritual promise, and it did not prove any product claim, but it helped expand scientific understanding of how different parts of the brain contribute to human experience. That broader idea became important to a team connected with Dr. Daniel Barone in New York. According to the material they provide, they focused on an auditory approach intended to support coordinated brain activity. Their claim is that this approach may help users feel clearer and more mentally engaged. Those are product claims, not guarantees. A woman from California described feeling less foggy and more emotionally present after using the program. According to her account, she felt as though something blocked had become easier to access. A man from Texas described a different change. He said persistent fog began to lift, and daily decisions felt easier. Those stories are personal reports. They are not promises, but they explain why some people became interested in the method. The program is called the Genius Switch. The Genius Switch is presented as an 8-minute digital auditory sequence used with headphones once a day. The creators describe the approach as neural sync technology and connect it with supporting coordinated brain activity. It is not presented as a meditation practice, and it does not require a long daily routine. The Genius Switch is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who understands that supporting the mind does not replace prayer, character, wisdom, or obedience. It is for the person ready to stop treating every moment of fog as a character flaw and start looking at practical support with clear eyes. According to the product materials, the offer is listed at $39 with digital access, several bonuses, and a money-back guarantee. Pricing and terms can change. The product page is the place to verify the current details before deciding. If this resonates, the resource is linked in the description and in the pinned comment. Read the details yourself, look at the terms, decide without pressure. A tool can support clarity. A tool does not replace God. It does not replace discernment. It does not choose for you. What matters most is that you stop confusing support with surrender. You are still responsible for the life you build and the truth you follow. The deeper current of this message is becoming capable of receiving what your formation prepared you to carry. Chosen one, we can finally return to the question that opened this message. What was God waiting to see from you? Not a perfect record, not endless suffering, not a flawless performance that proved you deserved something good. The deeper evidence was already appearing in the choices you made when nobody was watching. You stopped chasing what kept rejecting you. That mattered. You learned that love does not require you to beg for access. The old version of you might have kept knocking until dignity disappeared. You began to walk away with peace. You learned to obey without applause. That mattered too. You kept doing what was right when nobody rewarded it. You kept showing up when recognition was absent. Integrity became something you practiced in quiet rooms. You became harder to provoke. Not numb, not passive, stronger. You noticed the old urge to defend every misunderstanding, answer every insult, and prove every point. Then you discovered that peace sometimes looks like leaving a sentence unfinished. You learned to distinguish loneliness from wrong direction. Loneliness did not always mean you had chosen badly. Sometimes it was simply the space created when old connections could no longer follow the person you were becoming, and you stopped abandoning yourself to keep temporary peace. This may be one of the deepest changes of all. You can love someone and still say no. You can forgive without reopening every door. You can care without volunteering to disappear. That boundary is not cruelty. It is evidence that your inner life finally has a voice. So when this message says God is impressed with you, do not hear shallow praise. Hear something more grounded. The meaningful thing was never the suffering itself. The meaningful thing was what suffering failed to turn you into. It did not make you permanently bitter. It did not make you incapable of love. It did not erase your desire to become wiser. You bent, you doubted, but your character kept changing. That is why the season ahead cannot become another punishment to survive. You are not required to drag the identity of the tested person into every new room. The lesson can remain without the fear controlling every decision. And for the chosen one who felt something stir when the mind was mentioned earlier, the resource described before is still available in the description and pinned comment. Read about it only if it genuinely fits what you need. The invitation is there. The decision remains yours. What matters now is not another purchase, another sign, or another promise. It is one honest question. What are you still trying to prove that your life has already begun to demonstrate? Choose one thing you can stop proving. Maybe you can stop proving that you are loyal by tolerating disrespect. Maybe you can stop proving that you are faithful by staying confused. Maybe you can stop proving that you are humble by refusing to acknowledge your growth. Before this ends, I want to speak one declaration over the version of you that survived the closed door. That version deserves gratitude, but it cannot be allowed to run the open door season forever. Chosen one, before this message closes, give yourself one quiet moment. Let your eyes soften if it feels comfortable. Let your hands rest. Just notice that you are here, and that you are not the same person who entered those closed doors. Take one easy breath. Imagine a long hallway. Behind you are doors you once knocked on until your hands hurt. Some never opened. You do not need to return to them now. Let them stay behind you. Ahead of you is another door. This one is open. Do not rush toward it. Do not force meaning onto it. Simply notice what your body does when nothing is blocking the entrance. Maybe part of you relaxes. Maybe part of you becomes suspicious. Place one hand over your chest if that feels natural. Loosen your jaw. Let one breath leave slowly. Then say this within yourself: I can move without fear, proving itself first. You are choosing not to demand pain before you permit yourself to trust clarity. Release the need for one more sign when the truth is already clear. Release the belief that suffering makes you more worthy. Release the habit of calling exhaustion devotion. Release the shame you attach to mental fatigue. And release the fear that peace must always be followed by loss. You can be grateful for the version of you who survived. That person carried you through rooms where strength was necessary. But survival was never meant to become your permanent identity. The person who learned to endure can now learn to receive. So let these words become a declaration. I am not abandoned. I am not behind. I do not need pain to prove my faith. I receive clarity without guilt. I carry what I have learned forward. I am the one who remained, and I am the one who can now move. If these words reflect the choice you are making, mark it with one final sentence: I am ready to receive. Not ready to control every outcome, ready to meet the next decision as the person this season helped you become. And now we can close the question that has followed us from the beginning. What did God see? We cannot claim to know every thought of God or turn our interpretation into certainty. But through the lens of this message, the evidence is clear. Pressure changed your circumstances without being allowed to own your character. It did not own the final version of your heart. It did not get to decide every boundary. It did not get to make bitterness your permanent language. It did not get to convince you that rejection was your identity. Something inside you kept returning to what was true. That is the yes nobody else had to hear. That is the growth nobody else had to applaud. And that may be the reason you no longer need to stand before every new door asking whether you have suffered enough to deserve what is on the other side. Walk carefully, walk wisely, but walk. Let discernment guide you without letting fear impersonate discernment. Let peace be information, without demanding that peace prove itself through another crisis. Chosen one, you do not have to prove the same lesson again. Carry the wisdom, leave the fear, receive what is true, respond to what is clear, and let the next season meet the person you have already become. Amen. It is sealed.